Your smart TV may be your weakest privacy link. The Internet Archive is buckling under a cyber attack, and China has broken into the US's surveillance backdoor. Big stories this week. Welcome to Surveillance Report 199, where we are dedicated to keeping you private and secure with the latest news from the past week. I am Nathan from The New Oil.
And I'm Henry from Techlore. And our sponsor this week is JMP Chat. They are open source, and they're a way for you to get a phone number with privacy and security in mind. So one of the issues with a lot of the phone number services that we talk about is they have their own centralized clients that may or may not work on every operating system, like especially desktop operating systems and even some custom OSs over on the Android side of things. And so JMP Chat tries to kind of resolve this problem by allowing you to use the number pretty much anywhere you want, kind of like email works, where you can kind of log in through any email client. So it's cross-platform, and the official client is Geogram on Android, but you can use it on pretty much any platform if you really want to, and that's because it works over XMPP, so it's kind of this way of owning your number in a different method that you wouldn't normally be able to. It's pretty affordable. Again, everything that they use is open source, and I just think that they're a great sponsor, and I feel really lucky to have them. It's just a great service that aligns with our audience and what a lot of you are probably looking for, which is a way to have different numbers for different things. So check out JMP down in the description.
One quick announcement. We have our 200th episode live stream coming up next week. Have we figured out a time for that?
No. We will schedule a time, and it will be shown on YouTube long before we go live. And we'll do some announcements everywhere too. So if you're not already following us, follow us on Mastodon. And then also just stay subscribed on YouTube. We'll do a community post there with like the official time and everything once it's all scheduled.
On a related note, I messed up this week, and I apologize, audio listeners. I didn't push the audio version of the Q&A to listeners. Therefore, we did not have a spot for patrons to ask their questions. But if you're a patron, you can go ahead and leave your questions on this episode this week, and we will prioritize them on the live stream, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the news, and then we're just going to roll straight into the Q&A. So patrons and XMR chat people, you'll get first dibs. You won't have to be there the whole time if you don't want to, although we would love to have you. And then after that, we'll just go down the list. I think we've enabled like YouTube super chats and members. And then depending on how many questions we get and how much time we've got, we'll try to take some questions from people who attended, because we do appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us. So go ahead and mark your calendars, and we would love to see you guys there. It should be a lot of fun. And again, just a reminder for those who can't make it, it will be recorded and we will post it later. So don't worry if you can't make it, you'll still get your news just like every week. And with that, we'll launch into our highlight story. This week, we're talking about smart TVs, who this article likens to a, quote, digital Trojan horse in people's homes. So this is a 48-page report called How TV Watches Us, Commercial Surveillance in the Streaming Area. And this report cites Ars Technica, additional news publications, trade publications, blog posts, and statements from big players in streaming like Amazon, NBC Universal, Tubi, LG, Samsung, and Vizio. It provides a detailed overview of the various ways that streaming services and streaming hardware target viewers in newfound ways that the report argues pose several privacy risks. CDD is a nonprofit who composed the report as part of efforts to encourage regulation. And here's a quote from the report. Not only does CTV operate in ways that are unfair to consumers, it is also putting them and their families at risks as it gathers and uses sensitive data about health, children, race, and political interests. The report notes, quote, misleading privacy policies that have minimal information on data collection and tracking methods, and the use of marketing tactics like cookieless IDs and identity graphs that make the promises of not collecting or sharing personal information meaningless. There's a lot to unpack on this one. That was kind of the meat of the article, and of course, the article links to the actual report if you guys want to read it for yourselves. First of all, as usual, we want to acknowledge the veteran viewers and the experts who are with us are probably like, yeah, no kidding, we all know this. But again, a lot of people don't. This is news to a lot of people. A lot of people don't think about these kind of things. And I think a lot of us don't think about how revealing a lot of this information is. A lot of information can seem very benign at first glance, especially if it's gathered in aggregate and quote unquote anonymized. But one thing we and a lot of experts like to point out is anonymization is kind of a myth in most cases. It really doesn't take a lot of data to de-anonymize somebody. I also think there's a lot of legitimate questions, hopefully, when I was listing off those things: health, children, race, and political interests. Why? Just why? Even Meta and Google claim that you're not supposed to be able to target ads to people based on things like race and health data. studies have found that's not true, but at least on paper, they say like, hey, these are sensitive things that should be off limits. Also, children, I'm not a parent, but every parent I know finds the idea really creepy that advertisers are like already building a dossier on your children so that as soon as they turn 18, they can just start marketing to them. And they know your kids better than they know themselves at an age where they're very impressionable and suddenly have a crap ton of freedom. Sorry, not trying to talk down to any of the 18-year-olds in the audience, but like, God, I feel so old. Brain is still developing. You don't always make the best decisions. I can attest, I made a lot of stupid decisions when I was 18. And now these companies, again, know you better than you know yourself because they've basically been with you from day one. Really not cool. And then as a personal note, well, semi-personal note, the use of marketing tactics like cookieless IDs. I've got a video coming up about device fingerprinting, and I point out that like cookies, it's so meaningless to me when browsers are like, we're blocking third-party cookies. Nobody cares. There's so many other ways to track people. Cookies are just like, sure, may as well track them while you got it, but they don't need them. They're completely useless. As far as actionable takeaways, we are always fans of pushing for regulation. That definitely helps. It does not solve everything though. So the easiest thing you can do is to go through the settings and turn off any sort of like privacy related settings that you can find or tweak them. And of course, the more skeptical in the crowd will say, well, we don't even know if they listen to those. I think they probably do because a lot of the time they're so limited anyways. It's like all you can do is turn off like targeted advertising. They're still going to give you ads. They're just not going to be targeted. Or you can turn off like that little feature where it takes a screenshot of your screen every couple of seconds to see what you're watching. Actually, a quick personal note, I was messing with my TV the other day and I literally found I can disagree to the terms of service. So I did, and it turned it into a dumb TV. For the more advanced in the crowd, you could put a DNS on your router like NextDNS where you can block individual domains, but it can be hard to tell what domains are genuinely needed and what domains are just for ads and tracking. VPNs help a little bit because a lot of them do come with like tracker blocking DNS, but probably not as robust as something like NextDNS. And my last cynical note is sensitive data about children, because politicians are always banning things and saying, we need to ban this app and ban encryption because the children, think of the children. And here we are once again, just letting children's data out there because we care so much about the children.
With NextDNS, they do have native tracking block lists built in natively, which includes Apple, which they specifically cite tvOS, Samsung, they include Smart TVs, Xiaomi, Smart TVs, and then Roku as well. So if you have any of those devices and you still want them to be internet connected, NextDNS does have native tracking protection that you can add for those specific devices. If you don't want to go through the trouble of trying to figure out what those are, and if you don't know what NextDNS is, pretty much you're just going to change the DNS on either your router, or some TVs I think even allow you to change the DNS natively on the TV. Don't know which ones do that. But you would just update the DNS address that links to your NextDNS account, add those filters, and then you don't have to worry about it. Alternatively, keep these things offline. That's kind of the bucket I'm in. I don't have a TV, but for people I know who have a TV, I kind of see the way they use it. And I know that if I had a TV, the way I would use it is I would just keep it offline and use it as a big monitor. And I would just rely on pretty much my individual devices that I trust more, which is better because most of the software on these TVs suck. Everything's slow. They're not well optimized. A lot of these companies that build smart TVs don't build software, they build hardware. And so instead of playing a game on your smart TV, hook up like a PS5 to it or something cheaper. I know that that's asking a lot for certain people financially, but I do think that's probably the way to go for a lot of these things. And the other thing I would say too is my biggest issue with things like this is that, yes, companies have, I'd say, a big responsibility here. I do think regulation is important. But one thing that really does bother me is I wouldn't buy a TV in the first place just because I don't really love them. But if I did, I would actively try to buy one that was either more privacy respecting or didn't include any of this at all. And where I'm going with that is I really think that's something that's been lost in our society of supply and demand is the things that all of us buy are the things that are going to stay around and become more popular. So for everyone who's bought a smart TV, they're not the cause of this, but they're not contributing positively to this either. And I think that that's kind of an important thing to touch on as well. If people made it very clear they don't want these features, they'd stop making these products. So I know it's two ways because they make the products that people kind of then want, but also people buy them and reinforce that those are things that they want to purchase as consumers. So just think twice about, I guess, the companies that you're giving money to.
I just wanted to add two quick thoughts to that. You mentioned hooking up like a PS5 or something. You guys could also just get like a cheap computer. Like, honestly, I'm not normally a fan of it, but Black Friday is coming up. Go down to Walmart. You can get a decent low-end computer for probably $300 or less. And if all you're going to do is hook that sucker into the TV with HDMI and run Netflix on it, it'll do that. No questions asked, no problem. Go ahead and turn off all the settings. Only use it for that. Put it on the IoT Wi-Fi network. You'll be fine. Or the Raspberry Pi 5 came out. I have a 4. In my opinion, the 4 is okay. It's a little bit slow, but once it starts streaming, it's usually fine with no issues. I think the 5 is supposed to be like even more powerful. So those are about $100. You could buy a Raspberry Pi. We literally had ours Velcroed behind the TV. Just get a wireless keyboard and mouse under $100 and you're good to go. So that's one option. And then I just wanted to put out a personal note. On this note, I use a DDWRT router and it's supposed to have built-in ad blocking with Privacy. If anybody knows how to set that up, please let me know, because I actually freed up one of my Raspberry Pis so I could totally run like a Pi hole or something on it. And I don't want to change the DNS on my router because then I'll have DNS leakage and the VPN won't work right and this, that, and the other. But at the same time, when I look up Privacy, everything I see is like a deeply, deeply technical, not even step back, like broad overview of like, oh, you can do this with Privacy via 25 words that I don't even know what they mean because I'm not that tech savvy. So if anybody out there is like, it's super easy, here's like a plain English guide, please send that to me. Or maybe just tell me like, hey man, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to learn. It's actually really technical, in which case I'll know that. But as a personal note, if anybody out there has done this and you can dumb it down to like idiot level, I would really appreciate that. Because I would love to dive into that a little more on my router.
All right, data breaches. So the Internet Archive, which for those who don't know, is a site that essentially archives web pages online and media. And it also tries to keep it in different points of time. They've been hacked. This actually began as a pop-up. People received a JavaScript alert when they accessed the Internet Archive stating that it was breached. And they said, have you ever felt like the Internet Archive runs on sticks and is constantly on the verge of suffering a catastrophic security breach? It just happened. See 31 million of you on HIBP. HIBP is how they've been pwned, and it's a site that's dedicated to pretty much letting you know if you've been caught in a data breach. The threat actors shared the authentication database 9 days ago, and it's 6.4 gigabyte SQL file. And the database contains authentication information for registered members, including emails, screen names, password change timestamps, bcrypt hash passwords, and other internal data. The most recent timestamp on the stolen records was September 28th, 2024, likely when the database was stolen. Hunt specifically contacted the Internet Archive 3 days ago and began a disclosure process stating that the data would be loaded into the service in 72 hours, but he has not heard back since. It is not known how the threat actors breached the Internet Archive and if any other data was stolen. Earlier today, the Internet Archive suffered a DDoS attack, which has now been claimed by the Black Meta Hacktivist group, who says they will be conducting additional attacks.
Next, we're going to move over to India, where India's Star Health confirms a data breach after cybercriminals post customers' health data online. So last month, a cybercriminal group created chatbots on Telegram that leaked the alleged personal data belonging to 31 million Star Health policyholders and over 5.8 million insurance claims. The data included full names, phone numbers, and home addresses, as well as medical reports and insurance claims of individuals. The attackers also shared copies of customer ID cards and individual tax details. When asked by TechCrunch, Star Health would not say if the data breach included customer data.
We got hacked AI girlfriends, and this one showed prompts describing child sexual abuse. So this data was taken from a site called Mawa.ai. So it included chatbot prompts that reveal users' sexual fantasies. So the vibe I'm getting is that you describe what you want to the AI, and then it just talks back to you. But people were definitely using this and abusing this for some very not good scenarios. So these prompts are in turn linked to email addresses, many of which appear to be personal accounts with users' real names. 404 went to the site and noticed it looked like the moi.ai website was put together pretty poorly. It's basically a handful of open source projects duct taped together. And they started poking around and they found vulnerabilities relatively quickly. At the start, it was mostly just curiosity, but they decided to contact once they saw that they were in the database. The hacking itself is a significant data breach for those who use the service, given they may not want their explicit sexual fantasies linked to their identifiable email. And they detected it had been hacked last week and posted a message to its Discord warning users they've been targeted by hackers who apparently got nothing to do but to hack a community-driven project that aims to provide uncensored free AI for all, and wasting their talent on taking down small businesses rather than improving themselves for the benefit of society. It added that your chat messages are never kept, everything is wiped on chat reset, but the database still clearly includes lots of information that links specific users to particular sexual interests. A welcome email when signing up for the service says everything inside is encrypted and private between you and your companion only.
And we have one more new data breach. This one says ADT has disclosed its second breach in 2 months, hacked via stolen credentials. So for those who don't know, ADT is a public American company that specializes in security and smart home solutions for residential and small business customers. They have about 14,000 employees and an annual revenue of just under $5 billion. It was determined that the encrypted account data for employees was stolen in the attack, and the company says its investigation does not indicate that customer data or security systems themselves were compromised. This is the second ADT breach in 2 months, with the company warning in August that they suffered a data breach after a threat actor leaked almost 31,000 customer records, including emails, complete addresses, user IDs, and the products purchased on a hacking forum.
And from here, we have a lot more data breaches, but our recent strategy has just been to read out the titles. And if you're interested in them, we post the sources every single week. Underground ransomware claims attack on Casio, leaks stolen data.
MoneyGram says attackers stole customers' personal information and transaction data. Some really important data in there, social security numbers, ID documents, etc. So if you use MoneyGram, definitely check that out and get more information.
Comcast and Truist bank customers caught up in the FBCS data breach, which is the Financial Business and Consumer Solutions data breach. They're a debt collection agency. So this occurred back in April, and it included some sensitive stuff like socials.
Fidelity says that data breach exposed personal data of 77,000 customers. Fidelity's like a retirement account investment kind of firm, for those who don't know. So definitely some really sensitive data. I think before we didn't have the customer number, like how many people were affected, but now we do, and also what data was affected. So again, if you use Fidelity or you know someone who does, which you probably do, go ahead and check that one out.
And then Marriott had a breach back in 2014 that just got settled with the FTC for $52 million.
With that, we'll move into the company section, and we're going to start off with Google's theft protection features have started showing up for some Android users. So these are 3 new features that Google announced earlier this year that have reportedly started rolling out on Android. And these are theft detection lock, offline device lock, and remote lock. And they are aimed at giving users a way to quickly lock down their devices if they have been swiped so that thieves cannot access any sensitive information. Theft detection is triggered by the literal act of snatching. The company said in May that the feature uses Google AI to sense if someone snatches your phone out of your hand and tries to run or bike or drive away. In such a scenario, it'll lock the phone screen. Offline device lock, you can automatically lock the screen after a thief has disconnected the phone from the internet. And the last one, remote lock, they said you can already remotely lock your phone with Google's Find My Device feature, but remote lock lets you do it without having to scramble to figure out your account password. All you need for this is your phone number and a quick security challenge using any device.
Windows 11 has a new passkey design, which includes cloud syncing and 1Password integration. It's a redesigned Windows Hello experience, and you can select how you want to save your passkeys and even sync them to Microsoft or store them with 1Password, Bitwarden, or other passkey providers. So this is a new API for third-party password and passkey managers, means developers can plug directly into the Windows 11 experience, so you can use the same passkey from your mobile device to authenticate on your PC. And right now it's possible in some apps to do this through QR codes and other ways to authenticate from a mobile device, but Microsoft's full support means the passkeys experience on Windows is about to get a lot better.
And this last one's really, really quick. It's an update. Apple fixes bugs in macOS Sequoia that broke some cybersecurity tools. So we covered this story a couple weeks ago. Basically, the latest edition of macOS broke some VPNs. The way these articles are written, they made it sound like it was more enterprise level stuff, you know, like antivirus, work VPNs, CrowdStrike, like those kind of tools that are more common in enterprise environments. And I had speculated, I'm like, it sounds like consumer VPNs aren't affected. But I remember at least one person did write into us and say, like, actually, I use Proton and that's affected too. So hopefully it works now, because they should have rolled out a fix. And this is your friendly reminder to stay subscribed to the podcast, because we always have updates like this whenever we see them. And we're trying to make sure we're always giving you guys the latest updates and the latest news, and not just dropping a story and moving on to the next one.
Research. And we're going to start with the land down under Australia, where many of Australia's top car sellers are collecting and sharing driver data. And this is from an investigation specifically in Australia. And what they found after they analyzed Toyota, Ford, MG, Mazda, Kia, Hyundai, Tesla, Subaru, Isuzu, and Mitsubishi was that Kia, Hyundai, and Tesla were found to be the worst because it collected things like voice recognition and they shared it with third parties, and Tesla went a step further by sharing short video clips with third parties. And Mitsubishi, Subaru, and Isuzu were found to not collect or share driver data. So that seems to be a win for those three, at least in Australia. A spokesperson for Hyundai told them that its BlueLink app collects data in two ways: through in-vehicle activation that collects information on automatic collision notification and voice recognition, but no other personal information, and the full enrollment through the BlueLink app, which connects an email address and mobile number to create an account. Customers can deactivate in-vehicle and no more data saved from that point, and if the BlueLink account is deleted, all data is deleted. The company said voice recognition data is collected on an aggregate and non-identifying basis. So data is shared with third parties for purposes included to deal with customer inquiries, personalize experience, assess the quality of services provided, and to direct market to users where they have consented to Hyundai doing so. Tesla did not respond, but on the company's privacy page, the company says it does not sell user data, and data can be provided to affiliates, subsidiaries, service providers, business partners, and companies that are authorized by the user to access the data, and when required, to law enforcement and government agencies. The company collects information such as speed information, battery use and charging, and camera images, but says it does not link location data with account or identity and does not keep a record of where a driver has been. The company says users can opt out of the collection data through the touchscreen display in the car. Kia, which is a subsidiary of Hyundai, pointed to its privacy policy, which indicates its voice recognition data is also shared with the same third-party provider as Hyundai. Some of the other data collected through the Connect app includes location information, which the company says is shared in pseudonymous form. It also provides third-party real-time traffic information provider, which also collects data on people as well. And the Choice is the company that did the research on this, and they said that those companies that responded to the organization's questions said customers were offered opt-out options from the collection of data, but customers may not know their data is being collected in the first place.
This next article, it says, who owns your shiny new Pixel 9 phone? You can't say no to Google's surveillance. So the key takeaway from this article, it says every 15 minutes, Google's Pixel 9 Pro XL sends a data packet to Google. The device shares location, email address, phone number, network status, and other telemetry. Even more concerning, the phone periodically attempts to download and run new code, potentially opening up security risks, according to a security researcher at Cyber News, who also wrote this article. Cyber News reached out to Google about these findings, and the company explained the transmissions are needed for legitimate services on all mobile devices, regardless of the manufacturer. So researchers used a man-in-the-middle approach to intercept the traffic between a new Pixel 9 Pro XL and Google's servers. On a brand new phone with a new Google account and default settings, they installed an app to gain deep root access to the phone's system. Researchers then proxied the inbound and outbound traffic and used a custom security certificate to decrypt and examine the communications. Rooting the phone disables AI features such as Gemini Assistant, Pixel Studio, and potentially some other features. Therefore, this method did not allow for the capture of complete traffic. The phone requests the check-in endpoint around every 40 minutes, listing low-level features enabled on the phone, such as the firmware version, whether connected to Wi-Fi or mobile data, the SIM card carrier, and the user's email address. The location data is included in the request even when the GPS is disabled. At that point, the phone relies on nearby Wi-Fi networks to estimate your location. Another concerning observation was communication with services the user didn't explicitly consent to. Researchers did not open the Photos app even once, nor did they take any photos, yet the device periodically connected to endpoints associated with Photos' face grouping feature without asking for consent. They say that it sent potentially excessive and sensitive data, including the number of times the device was restarted, the time elapsed since powering on, and a list of apps installed on the device, including side-loaded ones. Most Android phones have a Cloud DPC package built in. It is used to manage enterprise devices, such as changing security policies, remotely distributing apps, wiping data, etc. So again, these are mostly used for like work environments. Worryingly, they observed Cloud DPC reaching out to Google servers. This signals that the company may be able to control settings and perform actions on regular consumer devices if they choose to do so. Moreover, the Pixel device periodically calls out to a staging environment service and attempts to download assets that do not yet exist. This reveals the capability of remotely installing new software packages. On a positive note, not a single data packet traveled to any third parties during the observation period. So here's Google's response. Google explained that Core Play services enable key functionality on every certified Android device. Everyone can check what data is collected. User security and privacy are top priorities for the Pixel, so they say. You can manage data sharing, app permissions, and more during device setup and in your settings. This report lacks crucial context, misinterprets technical details, and doesn't fully explain that data transmissions are needed for legitimate services on all mobile devices, regardless of the manufacturer, model or OS, such as software updates, on-demand features, and personalized experiences. The company also noted that it is difficult to recreate exact scenarios when the device is rooted, as these conditions could trigger unintended data checks. Pixel is stringent with sensitive permissions such as location, background apps, and usage data, and users need to explicitly consent to those permissions.
This next one is in the politics section, and it's a big one. There was a cyber attack tied to the Chinese government that penetrated the networks of a wide number of US broadband providers, potentially accessing information from the systems the federal government uses for court-authorized network wiretapping requests. So this happened for months or longer, and the hackers may have held access to network infrastructure used to cooperate with lawful US requests for this data. The attackers also had access to other tranches of more generic internet traffic, like Verizon, AT&T, and Lumen Technologies are among the companies whose networks were breached by the recently discovered intrusion. The widespread compromise is considered a potentially catastrophic security breach and was carried out by a sophisticated Chinese hacking group dubbed Salt Typhoon. It appeared to be geared towards intelligence collection, and they have been active since 2020 and is a nation-state hacking group based out of China that focuses on espionage and data theft. The surveillance systems believed to be at issue are used to cooperate with requests for domestic information related to criminal and national security investigations. Under federal law, telecommunications and broadband firms must allow authorities to intercept electronic information per a court order, and it couldn't be determined if systems that support foreign intelligence surveillance were also vulnerable to the breach. A person familiar with the attack said the US government considered the intrusions to be historically significant and worrisome.
California has passed a law to protect consumer brain data. On September 28th, California became the second U.S. state to officially recognize the importance of mental privacy in state law, and the first was Colorado, for those wondering. Regular checkup readers will be familiar with some of the burgeoning uses of mind-reading technologies. We can track brain activity with all sorts of devices, some of which can measure brain waves, while others track electrical activity or blood flow. Scientists have been able to translate this data into signals to help paralyzed people move their limbs or even communicate by thought alone. But this data also has uses beyond healthcare. Today, consumers can buy headsets that allow them to learn more about how their brains work and help them feel calm. Employers use devices to monitor how alert their employees are, and schools use them to check if students are paying attention. Brain data is precious. It's not the same as thought, but it can be used to work out how we're thinking and feeling and reveal our innermost preferences and desires. The new bill amends the California Consumer Privacy Act of 2018, which grants consumers rights over personal information that is collected by businesses. The term personal information already included biometric data, such as your face, voice, or fingerprints. Now it also explicitly includes neural data. The bill defines neural data as, quote, information that is generated by measuring the activity of a consumer's central or peripheral nervous system and that is not inferred from non-neural information, unquote. So in other words, data collected from a person's brain or nerves. The law prevents companies from selling or sharing a person's data and requires them to make efforts to de-identify it. It also gives consumers the right to know what information is collected and the right to delete it. Some proponents of mental privacy aren't satisfied that the law does enough to protect neural data. For example, one ethicist at the Technical University of Munich said, while it introduces important safeguards, significant ambiguities leave room for loopholes that could undermine privacy protections, especially regarding inferences from neural data.
This next one is from Germany. They're rushing to expand biometric surveillance. This is in response to a knife stabbing that happened in late August in a West German town. And the government has introduced a security package consisting of many measures to tighten asylum rules and introduce new powers for law enforcement authorities. And among them, there are three that stand out. So the first one is the government wants to allow law enforcement authorities to identify suspects by comparing their biometric data, like audio, video, and image data, to all data publicly available on the internet. Beyond the host of harms related to facial recognition software, this would mean that any photos or videos uploaded to the internet would become part of the government's surveillance infrastructure. The second thing, Germany wants to introduce AI-enabled mining of any data held by law enforcement authorities, which is often used for predictive policing. This would include data from anyone who ever filed a complaint, served as a witness, or ended up in the police database for being a victim of a crime. And third, the government wants to exploit an already controversial provision of the recently adopted Digital Services Act. And this law, which regulates online platforms in the EU, has been criticized for requiring providers to proactively share user data with law enforcement authorities in potential cases of violent crime. The German government now suggests expanding the DSA to include specific criminal offenses for which companies must share user data.
That'll take us into the free and open source software section, and we have some pretty good news this week. We're going to start off with Addy.io, formerly AnonAddy for those who missed the rebrand, and they now have a new official mobile app, a couple new ones actually. So first off, they have the official iOS and iPad OS app. For the first time ever, Apple users can enjoy an official app experience. In addition to announcing the iOS app, they are proud to announce that the existing Android app is now the official app for all users. So this was like a fan-made app, and I guess they reached out to that developer. I'm assuming, have like reached some kind of agreement, and it is now an official partnership. Stien, I don't know how to pronounce that username, I'm sorry, has been working hard to ensure both apps provide a cohesive experience across platforms, and now you can access the same fantastic features on both iOS and Android completely free of charge. You can also download the app from F-Droid.
Mozilla Thunderbird for Android is almost ready after 2 years. So a little recap here. K9 Mail is an open source email client for Android, joined the Mozilla Thunderbird project. And instead of making a new mobile app from scratch, Mozilla decided to convert K9 Mail slowly into the new Thunderbird Android app. While we've known about it for some time now, we finally have a final thing to test, and it is Thunderbird for Android in beta. So Mozilla is looking for users to test it and plans a stable release at the end of October. The new Thunderbird app is now available on the Play Store as a beta version for user testing.
Pine64's Linux-powered e-ink tablet is making a return. PineNote now has a reliable Debian-based OS developed by Maximilian Wiegand. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. This is described as, quote, not only a bare-bones capable OS, but a genuinely daily usable system that just works, according to the Pine64 blog. It is said to use the GNOME desktop plus a handful of extensions designed to ensure the UI adapts to working well with an e-ink display. Software pre-installed includes Zernal. It's like journal, but with an X at the beginning. Zernal++ for note-taking, Firefox for web browsing, and Foliate for reading ebooks, among others. Existing PineNote users can download the new image, flash it to their device, and help test it. Specs-wise, the PineNote offers a 10.1-inch e-ink display supporting up to 16 levels of grayscale, running at a resolution of 1404 by 1872, 227 DPI, has a quad-core RK3566 SoC, 4 gigs of LPDDR4 RAM, and 128 gigs of eMMC. Also included are 2 microphones, 2 speakers, a single USB Type-C port for charging and data, and built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. A front light with 36 levels of warm and cold lighting makes reading and taking notes in the dark easier, and physical paging and eraser buttons. The upcoming production run may sport some minor differences to the first model following feedback from owners. Notably, it will now ship with a passive stylus rather than an active one, which means that it doesn't require charging. There's no firm date when the PineNote will be back on sale, just that plans formalized for a production run are now in place. Price to be decided, but the early adopter run saw the PineNote cost about $400. This includes a magnetic cover and the EMR stylus pen, but Pine64 did say at the time both cover and stylus would be sold separately when the general sale occurred, so keep that in mind.
Proton has released a new plan, Pass Family. So you can have up to 6 family members on your plan for a limited time price of $3.99 a month on a 12-month plan, reduced from $4.99 a month. And Proton now supports students in the US, UK, France, and Germany with discounts. Those student discounts apply for their paid Mail Plus, Drive Plus, and VPN Plus subscriptions. And they're also making Proton Pass Plus free for all students. So Pass is free for students and the other stuff is discounted. So it applies to anyone studying at university, college, sixth form, high school, or as an apprentice in the US, UK, France, and Germany. As long as you can prove your student status to Student Beans with like a photo of your student ID, you qualify for the offer. Enjoy up to 80% off.
For the record, I just want to know up to 80% off. If you look through the article, it'll show you like how much the discount is per specific offering. It's not 80% across the board, but the biggest offering is 80%. All right, and that'll take us into Misfits, and we only have one story. American Water shuts down online services after cyber attack. So American Water is the largest publicly traded U.S. water and wastewater utility company. They were forced to shut down some of their systems after a cyber attack on Thursday. American Water has over 6,500 employees and provides water and wastewater services to over 14 million people in 14 states and 18 military installations. This incident follows a similar one that impacted the water treatment facility in Arkansas City, Kansas, which was forced to switch to manual operations after a weekend cyber attack. These incidents come after a TLP Amber advisory warning. It warned that Russian-linked cyber attacks were targeting the water sector, and it was issued by the Water Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is a nonprofit organization that helps protect water utilities from cyber threats. For instance, Chinese-backed Volt Typhoon, not Salt Typhoon that we talked about earlier, infiltrated the networks of drinking water systems in February, while Iranian threat actors breached a Pennsylvania water facility in November 2023. And those were all our stories this week. So your smart TV might be your weakest privacy link. The Internet Archive is, as we're recording, down for a cyber attack. Hopefully it'll be back up by the time you guys hear this. I know they said they were trying to get everything back up and running, but definitely a valuable resource for a lot of people. And China has proven that there is no such thing as a backdoor that only the good guys can use. So remember that next time somebody's standing up at a podium on TV and saying, we need a backdoor for the good guys to stop crime. There's no such thing.
JMP Chat is our sponsor for this video, and I just wanted to shout them out because they're a wonderful service that allow you to generate phone numbers that you can use for pretty much anything. They're phone numbers. And they're also free and open source, so you don't have to rely on any of these weird proprietary clients that may or may not work on all of your devices. So you get to own your number, you get to use your number how you want to. It's cross-platform. The official client is Geogram on Android, which works really well. But because JMP Chat is built on XMPP, you can use it on any operating system with different clients. And it pretty much allows you to own your number again, which is super cool. And they also have very affordable rates for those of you who want to compartmentalize phone numbers and use them for different things. I know it's a really common thing we talk about to avoid data breaches and to kind of just separate phone numbers for different tasks. I know I don't like my doctor having the same phone number as my family member, for example. So really useful tool. And we just feel really lucky to have a sponsor that we genuinely just enjoy on a personal level that we couldn't recommend more to our audience. So check them out in the description. And we have been really enjoying a lot of the positive comments we've heard from people who've tried it out from us. So thank you.
Just as one more reminder, our 200th episode live stream is this coming weekend. We know it's going to be Saturday morning. Again, apologies. We're going to hash that out this weekend. And if you check Mastodon, it should be on there. And on that note, again, I missed posting the Q&A in all the proper places this week. I apologize, that's on me. But if you go ahead and leave a question on this week's episode, we will prioritize those questions. We will prioritize XMR chat and then any YouTube super chats, members. And again, we do really want to get to you guys because we do appreciate you guys spending your time with us and asking questions. We can't promise we'll get to all of them because there are a lot of you guys and we only have so much time, but we're definitely going to try our best to answer at least some of the questions from the people who attend the live chat. And as a reminder, if you can't attend, totally understand. We will be reposting it later, so you will still be able to get your news. Thank you guys for listening to The Surveillance Report. Links to all of the stories can be found in the show notes as usual. If you have a story that you think we should cover, you can send it to news@surveillancereport.tech. The final thing we want to ask of you, please share the podcast around. Please make sure you're subscribed. Give us a rating if you're listening on a platform where that's an option. We are trying to reach as many people as possible with the message of privacy, and every little bit, the shares, the likes, the subscribes, all of that helps. So thank you guys again for listening, and we will see you next week for the live stream.